Hello, everyone. Please like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our
In the
stories.
warm, sun-drenched lands of India, there once lived a little girl named Mary Lennox. Her world was vast and beautiful, filled with the scents of jasmine and the distant calls of peacocks, yet Mary's life was a quiet, lonely one. She was 10 years old, with sharp gray eyes and a pale face, for she rarely ventured outdoors. The sunlight, so abundant and golden in India, barely touched her skin. Her days passed in the cool shadows of her family's grand house, a place bustling with servants yet empty of warmth. Mary's father was an important man, always busy, always away. His mind was filled with affairs of state, and his heart was locked away behind endless paperwork. Her mother was a vision of beauty and grace, admired by many but loved by few. She drifted through life in a cloud of laughter, silk dresses, and parties, but never had time to hold her daughter close. In this world, Mary was left to the care of servants, men and women who obeyed her every whim, not out of love, but out of fear of her temper. Without playmates, without affection, Mary grew up alone. She did not know how to laugh or share. She did not know how to comfort or be comforted. Her days were a series of silent hours, spent reclining in her room, attended by servants who spoke to her softly, but never with true kindness. She became cold and distant, a porcelain doll on a high shelf, admired but untouched. Then, one morning, everything changed. The house was suddenly filled with the sound of urgent voices, the hurried footsteps of servants, and the sharp, acrid smell of medicine. Cholera had come, swift and merciless. In a matter of days, the disease swept through the house, leaving behind silence and sorrow. Mary's parents fell ill, as did almost everyone else. But Mary, kept apart from others by her own solitude, remained untouched by the sickness. When the chaos subsided, Mary was the only one left. The house, once alive with activity, was now silent and empty, save for the little girl who wandered its halls. She did not cry. She did not call out. She simply sat in the garden's shade, her lips pressed together, her eyes fixed on some distant point, as if waiting for something she could not name. Eventually, an officer found her, sitting alone among the overgrown flowers and tangled vines. He looked at her with pity and confusion, unable to understand how such a small child could seem so calm in the face of such loss. Mary's heart, though, was not broken. It was simply empty, untouched by the love or grief that might have filled it. With no family left in India, arrangements were made for Mary to travel to England. She was placed on a great ship, with only a small suitcase and a handful of belongings. The journey across the ocean was long and lonely. The ship creaked and swayed, the days blending into one another, marked only by the endless expanse of water and sky. Mary spoke little to the other passengers. She watched them with her cool, gray eyes, observing but never joining in. She was like a ghost, drifting through the world, unseen and untouched. England was a world apart from India. The air was cool and damp, the skies often gray and clouded. Fields of green stretched out in every direction, and ancient trees stood silent and watchful. When Mary arrived, she was met by Mrs. Medlock, the housekeeper of Misselthwaite Manor, the place that would now be her home. Mrs. Medlock was a brisk, practical woman, not unkind, but not given to displays of affection. She saw Mary as a responsibility, something to be managed and cared for, but not cherished. The journey to Misselthwaite Manor took them through winding country roads, past hedgerows and stone walls, through villages that seemed to sleep beneath the misty sky. The carriage rattled along, the horses' hooves striking the ground in a steady rhythm. Mary sat quietly, her small hands clutching her coat, her eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the window. The world outside was unfamiliar, a blur of shadows and soft, shifting shapes. At last, they arrived at Misselthwaite Manor. The house rose up from the wild moorland, its stone walls thick and weathered by time. It was a place of secrets, with hundreds of rooms, long corridors, and doors that remained locked. The gardens were vast and tangled, filled with ancient trees, hidden paths, and the whisper of forgotten stories. Inside, the house was cool and quiet. The rooms were filled with heavy furniture, dark wood, and the faint scent of old books and polished brass. Servants moved silently through the halls, their faces polite but distant. Mary was shown to her room, a large, lonely space with a high ceiling and a window that looked out over the wild, windswept moor. As Mary settled into her new life, she found herself surrounded by mysteries. The house seemed to watch her, its silence heavy with secrets. She heard whispers of a locked garden, a place no one was allowed to enter. She noticed doors that were always closed, and sometimes, in the stillness of the night, she thought she heard the sound of someone crying, far away in the depths of the house. But for now, Mary was alone. She wandered the halls, explored the gardens, and watched the world with her distant gray eyes. Slowly, the rhythms of Misselthwaite Manor began to shape her days. The wind on the moor called to her, wild and free. The earth beneath her feet felt solid and real, and though her heart was still empty, something within her began to stir, a faint, flickering hope that, perhaps, in this strange and silent place, she might discover not only the secrets of the hidden garden, but also the warmth and joy she had never known. So began Mary's journey, a journey through loneliness and loss, through mystery and discovery. And as the days passed, the little girl who had once been a forgotten shadow in a distant land would learn to open her heart to the world, and in doing so, find a new home and a new self among the mists and secrets of Misselthwaite Manor. Misselthwaite Manor loomed over the wild Yorkshire moors, its gray stone walls rising from the mist like a memory of another age. The house itself seemed to hold its breath, wrapped in a hush that was deeper than silence. The great front doors opened with a groan, and Mary Lennox, thin and pale, stepped across the threshold. She was greeted not by warmth, but by a chill that seemed to seep from the very stones, a coldness that was more than the winter wind. It was the kind of cold that comes from years of sorrow and secrets, from laughter stilled and love lost. The manor was vast, a labyrinth of rooms and corridors, each one echoing with footsteps that might have belonged to anyone, or no one at all. Most of the doors were locked, their keys hidden away, their contents left to dust and shadows. The carpets muffled every sound, and the only movement was the flicker of candlelight on old portraits, the painted eyes of generations watching in silence. Mary wandered these halls, her own footsteps tentative and small, dwarfed by the gloom and grandeur of the house. She quickly learned that the master of Misselthwaite, Mr. Archibald Craven, was a figure more absent than present. His grief for his lost wife, Lilias, was so heavy that it seemed to have settled in every corner. The servants spoke of him in whispers, and when he did appear it was only briefly, his shoulders bent and his gaze fixed on the ground, as if weighed down by invisible chains. The story of Lilias Craven was never told in full, but Mary pieced it together from fragments. Lilias had loved a garden, a walled garden hidden somewhere on the estate, where she had poured her heart into growing roses and lavender, where laughter and music once drifted on the breeze. But after her sudden death, Mr. Craven had locked the garden gate and buried the key, shutting away not just the garden but a piece of himself. At first, Mary cared little for any of it. She had grown up in India, neglected and unwanted, and had learned to keep her feelings tightly locked away. She was sullen, quick to anger, and indifferent to the servants who bustled quietly around her. The manor, with its endless rooms and silent halls, felt like a prison. But as the days passed, something began to change. Perhaps it was the emptiness itself, the way the silence pressed in on her, or perhaps it was the faint, unexplainable sounds she sometimes heard, a distant cry, a muffled sob, carried on the wind. Whenever she asked about it, the servants would only shake their heads and say it was nothing, just the wind in the chimneys. It was during one of her wanderings that Mary met Martha. Unlike the other servants, Martha was cheerful and unafraid, her Yorkshire accent rolling like music through the gloom. She spoke of her family, of the moors and the wild beauty outside, of early mornings and simple joys. Most of all, she spoke of her brother, Dickon, a boy who seemed more at home with animals than with people, who could charm a bird from a branch or coax a flower from the earth with nothing more than a smile. The stories of Dickon awakened something in Mary. She found herself longing to see the world outside the manor's walls, to feel the wind on her face and the grass beneath her feet. With Martha's encouragement, she was allowed to walk in the gardens, though most of them were overgrown and tangled from years of neglect. The cold air stung her cheeks, but she pressed on, drawn by a sense of adventure she had never known before. One morning, as the mist curled around the hedges and the ground sparkled with frost, Mary noticed a robin perched on a low branch. The bird was bold and curious, its bright eyes fixed on her, as if it had been waiting for her all along. When she moved, it hopped ahead, pausing to make sure she followed. Step by step, the robin led her through the tangled grass, past crumbling statues and weathered benches, until they reached a wall thick with ivy and moss. There, the robin fluttered and chirped, its tiny wings beating against the stone. Mary felt a thrill of excitement, a sense that she was on the edge of a discovery. The robin became her first friend, a companion in her lonely explorations. With each passing day, Mary grew stronger, her cheeks flushed with color, her eyes brighter. She began to ask questions, to listen to the sounds of the wind and the calls of the birds. She noticed the way the grass moved, the way the buds pushed through the earth, the way the sun broke through the clouds. For the first time in her life, she found herself caring about the world, about the people around her, and about the secrets that seemed to whisper from every stone. Mary's transformation did not go unnoticed. Martha smiled at her newfound curiosity, and even the other servants seemed less distant. But it was the thought of Dickon that lingered in Mary's mind. Dickon, who could talk to animals and understood the language of growing things. She imagined him walking the moors, his pockets full of seeds and crumbs for the birds, his laughter ringing out across the fields. She wondered what it would be like to meet him, to share in his world of wonder and life. Yet even as Mary's heart opened to the beauty around her, the mysteries of Misselthwaite remained. The locked doors, the hidden cries in the night, the secret garden lost to time, these lingered at the edge of her thoughts, drawing her onward. She felt certain that the garden was waiting for her, just as she was waiting for it. Somewhere behind the mossy wall, beneath the tangled vines and fallen leaves, something precious lay sleeping, waiting for the touch of a gentle hand and the warmth of a hopeful heart. And so, as winter slowly gave way to spring, Mary pressed on, guided by curiosity, friendship, and the promise of something wonderful just out of reach. The secrets of Misselthwaite Manor were many, but Mary was no longer afraid. With each new day, she drew closer to the heart of the mystery, and to the garden that would change her life forever. The days at Misselthwaite Manor slipped by, each one quietly transforming Mary Lennox in ways she could hardly have imagined. From the moment she first set foot in the cold, misty Yorkshire air, Mary had been a pale, withdrawn child, her voice sharp, her eyes wary, her heart wrapped in layers of loneliness. But now, with every morning spent outside, she felt herself changing. The garden, with its wild tangles and untamed corners, called to her. The wind, brisk and sometimes biting, colored her cheeks with life. Sunlight, shy but persistent, slipped through the bare branches, painting patterns on the mossy stones. And the birds, especially the robin, sang songs that seemed meant just for her. In this strange, sprawling place, Mary discovered a world beyond her own sadness. She no longer thought of herself as the little lady from India who gave orders and expected the world to obey. Here, in Yorkshire, she ran along muddy paths, knelt in the grass, and breathed deeply of the cool, green-scented air. Her hands, once soft and idle, became strong and nimble. Her eyes, once dull and guarded, sparkled with curiosity. For the first time in her life, Mary Lennox felt truly, gloriously alive. One crisp morning, Mary wandered through the overgrown gardens, her boots sinking into the damp earth. The robin, her robin, she called him, appeared as if from nowhere, his chest blazing red against the gray sky. He hopped from branch to branch, singing a song that seemed almost like a greeting. Mary laughed, the sound startling in its lightness. The robin cocked his head as if inviting her to follow. With a sense of adventure bubbling inside her, Mary obeyed. The little bird flew ahead, pausing every so often to make sure she kept up. He led her through a tangle of brambles and overgrown hedges, deeper into the garden than she had ever dared to go. At last, they reached a corner where the walls were thick with ivy and moss. The robin fluttered down to a spot near the ground and began to peck at the leaves. Mary knelt beside him, her fingers trembling with excitement. She pushed aside the vines and, to her astonishment, found a small, rusty iron door, almost invisible beneath years of growth. Her heart pounded. Who had built this door? Why was it hidden? Mary traced the cold metal with her fingers, feeling for a handle or a lock. There was no key in sight, and the door would not budge. The secret garden, she was certain of it, lay just beyond. That night, Mary could hardly sleep. The image of the hidden door danced in her mind. The next day, unable to resist, she returned to the garden. She wandered near the old flower beds, poking at the earth with a stick, her thoughts swirling. Suddenly, the stick struck something hard. She dug with her hands, ignoring the dirt beneath her nails. There, buried in the soil, was an old key, its surface rough with rust, but unmistakably a key. With the key clutched tightly in her hand, Mary hurried back to the hidden door. Her breath caught as she slid the key into the lock. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a gentle click, the door swung open. She stepped inside, and the world changed. The secret garden was wild and silent, a place untouched for years. Weeds grew thick as carpets. Vines hung heavy from the wooden frames of forgotten rose bushes, and tangled branches stretched in every direction. Yet, beneath the wildness, Mary sensed something magical, a pulse of life waiting to be awakened. The air was thick with the scent of earth and old leaves, but also with something sweeter, something hopeful. She wandered slowly, touching the rough bark of the trees, listening to the wind whisper through the branches. The garden was lonely, but not dead. It was sleeping, waiting for someone to care enough to bring it back to life. Mary felt a kinship with this place, a place hidden away, neglected but full of promise. Mary knew she could not keep this secret to herself forever. One afternoon, as the sun warmed the stones and the air buzzed with the promise of spring, she found Dickon. He was a boy from the moor, with wild brown hair and a gentle smile, his hands always full of seeds or small creatures. Animals seemed to follow him wherever he went. A fox cub, a brown squirrel, and a crow named Captain. Dickon was as much a part of the natural world as the wind or the grass. Mary trusted Dickon in a way she had never trusted anyone before. She led him to the secret door, her heart pounding with excitement and fear. Dickon's eyes widened in wonder as he stepped inside. Together, they explored the garden's forgotten corners, their laughter mingling with the birdsong. They began to work side by side. Dickon brought seeds and tools, teaching Mary how to loosen the soil, how to coax new life from the earth. They pulled weeds, pruned tangled branches, and planted flowers. The work was hard, but Mary relished it. Her hands grew calloused, her arms strong. She learned the names of the plants and the songs of the birds. She learned to listen, to the garden, to Dickon, and to her own heart. With every passing day, the garden changed. Shoots of green pushed through the soil. Buds swelled on the rose bushes. The air grew warmer, filled with the scent of new growth. Mary, too, was changing. She laughed more often, ate with appetite, and slept deeply at night. The sadness that had shadowed her for so long began to lift, replaced by something bright and hopeful. The secret garden, once a place of sorrow and loss, was coming back to life. And so was Mary. She had found a friend, a purpose, and a place to belong. The garden was no longer just a secret, it was a promise of happiness, a testament to the power of care and friendship. In its rebirth, Mary found her own. For days, Mary had wandered the winding paths of Misselthwaite Manor, her heart lightened by the secret she carried. The hidden garden, once locked away and choked with thorns, had awakened under her care and Dickon's gentle hands. Yet, within the great stone house, another secret lingered, a sorrowful echo that crept through the corridors each night, calling out in a voice both plaintive and persistent. It was a sound that Mary could not ignore, as if the house itself begged for her courage. One night, with the moon casting pale shadows across the floor, Mary rose from her bed. She moved quietly, careful not to wake the housemaids or the wind that rattled the windows. The echoing cry led her through unfamiliar passageways, past portraits of stern ancestors and closed doors that seemed to watch her with silent curiosity. Finally, she reached a door she had never noticed before, plain, unremarkable, yet heavy with secrets. With a trembling hand, Mary turned the handle and slipped inside. In the dim glow of a single lamp, she saw him, a small, pale boy, propped up on a mountain of pillows beneath a white canopy. His hair was dark and untidy, his skin almost translucent, and his eyes, wide and shadowed, looked up at her with a mixture of fear and longing. This was Colin Craven, her cousin, the hidden son of the manor, whose existence had been shrouded in whispers and sorrow. Colin's world was one of silence and suspicion. He had lived in this room for as long as he could remember, convinced by the adults around him that he was too fragile to face the world. He believed himself to be doomed, destined to inherit his father's hunched back and to die young, just as his mother had. The fear had settled into his bones, making him irritable and demanding, a prisoner of his own despair. No nurse could soothe him for long, and servants tiptoed around his tantrums, afraid to speak the truth. Mary, however, was not afraid. She saw in Colin the same emptiness she had felt when she first arrived at Misselthwaite, an emptiness that no amount of coddling or medicine could fill. She understood, in a way no adult could, that what Colin needed was not pity, but hope, not comfort, but something real, a place where he could belong, where the air was filled with the promise of life. Day after day, Mary returned to Colin's room. She brought with her the scent of fresh earth and stories of the outside world. She spoke of Dickon, who tamed wild creatures with his gentle voice, and of the secret garden where flowers bloomed in riotous color, untouched by sorrow. At first, Colin listened with skepticism, his eyes narrowed with doubt. But as Mary described the golden light dancing through the leaves and the laughter of birds overhead, something within him stirred. The tales of the garden became a lifeline, a thread of possibility that pulled him from the shadows of his mind. One morning, as the first hints of spring brushed the moors, Colin's voice trembled with longing. "I want to go outside," he whispered. "I want to see the garden." The day arrived quietly, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Dickon appeared at the appointed hour, his eyes shining with excitement and resolve. Together, they wrapped Colin in blankets and settled him into a wheeled chair, careful to shield him from the chill. The journey through the manor was solemn, each step a small rebellion against the years of fear and isolation. At last, they reached the hidden door. Mary pressed the key into the lock, and the garden unfolded before them, a tapestry of green and gold, alive with the song of birds and the rustle of new leaves. The air was warm and sweet, heavy with the promise of growth. Colin's breath caught in his throat as he gazed at the wonder before him. For the first time, his eyes filled not with tears, but with awe. Each day the children returned to the secret garden. At first, Colin simply watched, his thin hands resting in his lap as Mary and Dickon worked the soil. But the garden, patient and persistent, worked its magic. Dickon showed him how to dig small holes for seeds, how to press the earth gently around fragile roots. Mary told stories of flowers that opened only at night, of creatures that danced in the moonlight. Slowly, Colin's cheeks grew pink with excitement, his laughter echoing among the branches. The garden became their sanctuary, a place where fears melted away and possibilities bloomed. With each visit, Colin grew stronger. He learned to stand, first with trembling legs and then with growing confidence. The sunlight warmed his face, and the wind tousled his hair. One bright morning, as the robins sang and the daffodils nodded in approval, Colin took his first steps. Hesitant at first, then bold and joyous. He lifted his arms to the sky as if to embrace the very sun that had awakened him. Dickon cheered, his voice ringing with pride. Mary smiled, her heart swelling with happiness. In that moment, the miracle they had all hoped for became real. Colin, once convinced of his own frailty, discovered the strength that had always been within him. The garden had healed more than his body. It had mended his spirit, teaching him to believe in life, in friendship, and in himself. Mary, too, was transformed. The anger and loneliness that had once defined her faded, replaced by a quiet joy and a sense of belonging. She had found a family, not just in the Cravens, but in the wild, living heart of the garden. Dickon remained their steadfast friend, a bridge between the world of men and the mysteries of nature. The secret garden, once locked and forgotten, now flourished under their care. Its gates were open, its paths alive with laughter and hope. It was no longer a place of sorrow, but a testament to the power of love and the miracles that bloom when hearts are set free. Summer's golden light spills across the garden, warming every corner and coaxing life from every branch and blossom. Where once there was only silence and neglect, now the air is alive with the music of birdsong and the gentle rustle of leaves. Roses burst forth in brilliant arches, their petals tumbling softly onto the winding earthen paths below. The garden, once forgotten and locked away, has awakened, transformed by the touch of caring hands and hopeful hearts. But perhaps the truest miracle is not the revival of nature alone. It is the rebirth of the souls who have found themselves within these walls. Mary, who arrived at Misselthwaite Manor as a pale shadow, has blossomed alongside the garden she helped restore. No longer is she the sullen, withdrawn child who shied away from the world. Her laughter now rings clear and true, rising like a lark above the roses. Her hands, once idle and delicate, are roughened and strong, bearing the marks of digging, planting, and nurturing. These are the badges of her transformation, a testament to the joy that comes from giving oneself over to the rhythms of the earth. Mary has learned that love does not need to be begged for or demanded. She has discovered that when she lets her own heart bloom, she becomes a source of light for others. The loneliness that once weighed so heavily on her has lifted, replaced by a quiet confidence and a deep sense of belonging. She moves through the garden with purpose, her every gesture a gentle affirmation of her newfound strength and kindness. Colin, too, has been utterly transformed. The boy who once lay in bed, convinced that he was doomed to a short and miserable life, now runs and leaps beneath the open sky. His laughter is like a fresh breeze, carrying away the shadows of fear and despair. The specter of illness and frailty has been dispelled, not by magic wands or whispered spells, but by the simple, powerful magic of hope, sunlight, and the steady work of hands that plant seeds and hearts that wait patiently for them to grow. No longer does Colin see himself as a prisoner of fate. He has come to believe in the magic that lives in the turning of the seasons, in the warmth of friendship, and in the courage to try. Where once he was a ghost haunting the halls of Misselthwaite, he is now its living flame, a boy fully alive, radiant with possibility. The garden has given him back his body, his laughter, and his future. Far from the garden, in a lonely land of deep forests and sorrowful lakes, Mr. Archibald Craven wanders, his heart heavy with grief. He cannot bear to face the memories of his beloved wife, Lilias, or the son he has left behind. The weight of regret and loss has kept him away from Misselthwaite, from the home that once held all his happiness. But one night, as he drifts into uneasy sleep, he dreams of Lilias, not as a figure of sorrow, but as a presence filled with light and laughter, calling to him from the garden. Her voice is not mournful, but full of hope, as if urging him to return, to open his heart, and to live once more, awakening with a sense of purpose. He has not felt in years. Mr. Craven knows it is time to go home. He travels back to Misselthwaite, arriving on a morning so bright and clear that it seems the world itself is welcoming him. The house is familiar, yet changed. There is a warmth in the air, a sense of renewal that he cannot quite name. He moves through the halls and out into the garden, his steps slow with anticipation and uncertainty, and there, beneath the arches of blooming roses, he sees a sight that takes his breath away. Colin, his son, is walking towards him. Not carried, not supported, but walking on his own, each step steady and sure. The boy's eyes are aglow with life, shining with the promise of all that is yet to come. For a long moment, father and son stand facing one another, the past and the future balanced between them. "Father!" Colin calls, his voice clear and strong. "I can walk." Tears fill Mr. Craven's eyes, not of sorrow, but of a happiness so fierce and unexpected that it shakes him to his core. He kneels and gathers Colin into his arms, holding him close for the first time in years. The walls of grief and regret that have surrounded his heart begin to crumble, melted away by the warmth of love and the miracle of his son's rebirth. In that embrace, both are healed, father and son, separated for so long by pain and misunderstanding, reunited at last. In the days that follow, the garden is no longer a secret. Mary, Colin, Dickon, and Mr. Craven walk its paths together, their footsteps marking the grass with the imprint of hope restored. They do not need many words. The songs of birds and the whisper of the wind in the leaves speak for them. Each of them, in their own way, has been transformed. Mary, once so alone, now radiates kindness and joy. Colin, once trapped by fear, is filled with energy and laughter. Mr. Craven, once lost in sorrow, has found his way back to love. As twilight falls and the last rays of sunlight filter through the rose arches, Colin takes his father's hand. Together, they walk along the fragrant paths, the garden enfolding them in its gentle embrace. The locked gate of the past has been thrown open, and in its place stands a future filled with promise. This garden is no longer just a place of secrets. It is a living testament to the power of hope, the strength of love, and the courage to begin again. Here, things thought lost are found once more. Here, miracles bloom, not from spells or enchantments, but from the simple, enduring magic that lives in every heart willing to believe, to love, and to live anew.